Hello, my name is Alex and I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and today's date of recording is Sunday the 10th of November 2024. I was born in London but grew up in a smaller town outside the main city. My background is Spanish, Italian and English. Having Spanish tableware and tile art around the house growing up definitely inspired some of my interests in patterns and bold uses of colour in my earlier practice of painting and drawing, creating characters and places for them to live. My parents having interests in design, painting and poetry also meant that I grew up in a creative household. I would say my intrigue in art has always been there for as long as I can remember, without it sounding too cliche, but I was very observant of art all around me growing up, whether it be what I saw in my house or outside. It always felt like creating brought me comfort, and to this day I make art for the same reasons. A feeling of being able to step away from life all around me and enter a place of mind which feels nostalgic now that I've been making art for many years. I suppose without it being intentional, the work that I make today takes a lot of reference points from my childhood. This sense of being unsure but enjoying the feeling that I get from making something from my imagination. I have different influences for various reasons, whether it be Jean-Michel Basquiat for his vibrant and bold use of mixed mediums, or Salvador Dali for monumental compositions. I've always picked the parts of those that inspire me that I feel would be most beneficial for my practice and that would be enjoyable for me to respond to. I admittedly look to a lot of my contemporaries to be inspired by, with the intention of making something my own through the repurposing of my integrated and individual outlooks and experiences. A lot of my works over the last few years have been inspired by the likes of Banksy, Robert Longo, Mark Powell, Guy Daning and Robert Rauschenberg. Besides influences being other artists, I like to go outside. I'll go for walks and listen to music before beginning a piece or continuing to work on a project. I find that it really clears my mind and it helps me to focus on the art that I'm producing. I had taken a hiatus earlier this year, reflecting on taking part in several exhibitions, including a solo show, but within the last few months I've got back into drawing using biro pens. I am revisiting angles of written narratives of my work of last year and producing new art based upon these reflections. Whilst producing a new collection of work, I'm also focusing on designing clothing and videos depicting the process of my ongoing practice. What are the biggest challenges of being an artist? Feel like you swing on this pendulum of that it's all on your terms, which has as many pros as it does cons. Other challenges like finding methods to stay motivated or reserving enough energy to be able to bring ideas to life. If you want to feel transcendence or a place to explode emotions onto, having creative ventures can work as that tool, but having balance is important to help have that energy and motivation. Taking a break is still productive in its own right. The challenge of being able to find balance and being able to separate the conscious thinking towards an artwork and your own clarity. Sometimes you have to wait for an idea to fall in place. Workflow can't be forced. You know personally the feelings of being inspired and calculated in the process because it feels effortless. A challenge that I also face is completely capturing and grasping a mental image and bringing that out onto a picture. Things can get lost in translation and it can be difficult not to question your ability and be discouraged by not executing it as such, but I feel that every creative works within this position. The subjectivity of artistic expression is an unavoidable element of making art, but you must ask yourself who you're making it for. I feel that it's more than okay to be selfish in this sense. The moment you're making something directly for the audience, it's no longer completely yours. I do believe once you publicize a piece, it is for the recipients to have their say and project their perspectives. Your ownership of the art and their interpretations coincide, but there is a difference in letting your art be received by others and making art simply for the reception. A lot of my supporting narratives in my work derive from personal experiences and questions I ask myself, so therefore it is my work, but I allow for my audience to invest their own anxieties or feelings onto it, as I understand that my feelings are not unique to the next person. When producing work that feels like you're exposing your feelings, you have to be honest, as its authenticity is in question. Some advice I would give my younger self would be to document everything that you do. It may seem excessive, but to be able to look back at your journey is something very valuable to creatives. You can see your style evolve over time, and I often get inspiration from my own discography, repurposing old pieces and imposing new meanings. Networking is so important. Do what you can to put your work and your name out, looking for local galleries, events, and groups to collaborate and learn from would be a good place to start. Build a habit of always gathering sources to put into your own practice. This could be taking photographs, observational drawings, and writing notes. Do it for the sake of wanting to develop your ideas and yourself creatively. It shouldn't feel like a chore. I found that I would have thoughts of work almost as instant responses to things I see, but without writing something down or sketching an idea, I would lose that trail of thought. So I document not to forget later on. On my commutes to work, I write ideas, sketch out compositions, often draw passengers, just to keep practicing these techniques. Lastly would be to trust the process. I leave this idea more open because although the notion of the saying isn't unique to the next creative, how trusting the process may look different. I would advise that young creatives keep exploring ideas and be fearless in what they do despite the doubts that they may have. Have you ever tried any unconventional mediums or techniques? To answer, I wouldn't say that there is an unconventional medium. Ideas may exist more coherent through certain mediums and deliver an idea or a message clearer, but it isn't to say that opposing mediums are not conventional. If anything, it places concepts on alternate trajectories, which may in turn become more of what you wish for the idea to develop into. It's why I like to have digital versions of paintings and repurpose old pictures into collages. The fluidity of creating should be played with more, as there's no definitives. I have worked on recreating paintings as digital collages where manipulating color schemes and textures and layering it felt like the picture's DNA had been stripped and the intrinsic meanings had been inverted. However, this wasn't the result of the other medium being unconventional. And to add, I wouldn't be able to achieve this style without the digital tools, so I really like the outcomes. Do you listen to music or have any other type of background noise whilst you work? Or do you prefer silence? With listening to music or having background noise, it does depend on my mood. There will be sessions I go with music or a documentary playing in the background, and other times that I prefer to just have silence. There are instances where I'm more focused on the piece that doesn't allow for the external presence of music. It's difficult to pinpoint a reaction in particular. However, since I've began writing narratives to accompany the meanings behind my art, especially work related to my own experiences of mental health challenges, I've received many supportive messages. Despite some themes to explore scenarios that would be deemed as bleak and despondent, there is a lot of optimism represented within my work, and I hope for viewers to take that and inject their interpretations by placing themselves in the environments or scenarios that I create. The people that I draw aren't self-portraits, but instead amalgamations of personal thoughts and feelings. Feel like by removing an identifiable figure or face, one can make the assumption that they're looking at themselves in the work.